another comment is, or question here is, how can Buddhism in a practical way, help all of us to at least reduce this never-ending madness on a global level? Global significance of such ideas like Buddhists is needed more than ever these days. So I wondered if you had a comment on.
Well, again, I mean, I'm not sure if Buddhism is the answer. I think kindness maybe is the answer. I think getting off the internet is the answer. But maybe, again, at this historical moment in the world, and again, not the whole world, in a particular part of the world, like a lot of the world that we're connecting to right now, Buddhism does seem to be that answer. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't get those same ideas if I go deep into my Islamic background or my Christian background or my Judaic background or any of that. All the same teachings are there. But why is it that Buddhism has taken on this? Because in a way, Buddhism has evolved to take on that role as that religion which maybe doesn't have that more sordid history of violence and oppression. But again, I'm telling you that if you looked into Buddhism, you'll find plenty of those things too. Maybe not at the scale, it's true, that you do in other places, but at the end of the day, I think anyone, if Buddhism is what attracting you and is making you a better person or a more peaceful person, then wonderful, that's great. And then my only thing would be take that extra step and really, I mean, if you're going to get into it, do your homework and really get into it. And the other thing I would suggest is, why not take a look back at maybe the religious tradition you might have been raised in or might have grown up with, and find those beautiful parallels that are right there, that are available to you.
So one question is, the conventional view is that Buddhism was a revolt against Brahmanism and the caste system. What exactly was Buddha's position of the caste system? Did he talk about rebirth over and over? He did talk about rebirth over and over again, but was it in the same way as the caste system prescribes?
Good question. But I mean, I wouldn't say it was a revolt against Hinduism or caste system, but certainly the Buddha was critical of caste, in the sense that the Buddha believed that any human being could follow this practice and reach enlightenment, that everyone should have access to it. That's really important to remember. So two of the things that you can think about is, number one, Buddhism was always preached in Prakrit, which is again a natural common language, not in Sanskrit. It was only later that Buddhism picked up Sanskrit. So and then as Buddhism spread, it was always preached in the local languages that it was spread in. So that's really important. The other thing that Buddhism was critical to that I was mentioning earlier is its connection to merchant communities. So really, if you want to talk about varnas and caste, I mean, yes, it's the Brahman Kshatriya relationship that really defined that earlier period of, Vedic culture. So you had the Brahmins who were, the ritual specialists. You had the kings or the Kshatriyas who were, sponsoring these things and legitimating their power through those rituals. But then the next class, the merchant communities, were not really part of that. But as this kind of commerce developed, people became more wealthy, trade increased. It's really the merchant class that, took up Buddhism in the early period, and that was really important. I'll try to quickly go through the rest of these. So as Buddhism kind of spread throughout the Asian world, it did kind of die out in India in terms of practitioners. And, today we say in India there really aren't any Buddhists, at least not from that kind of old tradition. But we do have a whole new set of Buddhists because Baba Sahib Ambedkar converted to Buddhism right at the end of his life, and converted many of his followers, many untouchables and Dalits, to Buddhism. And so many of the Buddhists that we see today in India are from these communities, and it's having its own, development. If you go to, for example, if you go to Bodh Gaya today, there's so much information about Ambedkar, and a lot of books and information that you can get about that. So it's an important kind of thing to think about how, again, things move, they come back, they die out, they're revived, they come back in new ways. And this is all happening vis-a-vis the Buddhist teachings.
It's a somewhat technical question, but it's one that I think many people may have, especially given the popular conversation about Buddhism. It's, what is the difference, if any, between normal Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism?
Normal Buddhism? I mean,
that's the language in the question.
Yeah, so Buddhism is a big term, and there's all different kinds of Buddhism. There's many kinds of Chinese Buddhism. There's many kinds of Tibetan Buddhism. It's all different schools of Tibetan Buddhism. What I was saying before, though, about the Nalanda and the Shantideva and that stuff is, in the Buddhist history of Tibet, I mean, there was as the story goes, the king at one point was, there were Chinese Buddhists there were Indian Buddhists there, and there was one day they kind of had to decide, which route are we going to go, which tradition are we really going to follow, and there was a debate between the two, and I guess the Indian monk won out. And so Tibetan Buddhism has a deep connection to India, more than I think other traditions do, and always did from that period onward. But Tibetan Buddhism, again, we have to get into what the different things. You have the Theravada, the older school, which is mostly in Sri Lanka. You have the Mahayana school, which really develops in India, and then becomes the centerhold of even what the Tibetan tradition is based on. But then the Tibetan tradition also develops what they call Vajrayana Buddhism, which is, a little bit more advanced and esoteric form of Buddhism. And really, if you think about it, that advanced Vajra Buddhism is also linked to, again, a deeper Indian yogic tradition. So the connection between Tibetan Buddhism and Indian Buddhism is very strong. But again, Tibetan Buddhism is no different than any other Buddhism, in the sense that all Buddhisms are different. So they all have their particular idiosyncratic kind of things. And to stress again, Tibetan Buddhism is not a monolithic thing. There's so many different kinds of Tibetan Buddhism, so many different schools and traditions. So. Absolutely. So the reason why Buddhism is so popular right now in that secular context is because there is no God. But having or not having a God is not what defines a religion to me. It's more of the other things. To me, whether you believe in God or a concept of God or not is not the fundamental principle of defining a religion. On this issue, Buddha did not, by the way, negate the idea of God. Buddha simply remained silent on the issue. So that's the Buddhist take. That's the Buddhist take. Now, because what the Buddha is saying by that kind of response is, it doesn't matter. That's not even the problem. That's not the issue that we need to even be thinking about. These are, avaktya. They're not able to be discussed because, you could believe any of those things, but it doesn't change the basic fact that you are suffering. So let us get to the real question at hand and look at that. Dealing, the famous story is that, the hunter's out in the woods and an arrow comes and shoots him. He gets hit by an arrow. And you don't sit there and think, how long is the arrow? Where did the arrow come from? Who shot the arrow? All of those questions, you can ask them. But the most pressing issue is removing that arrow from killing me. And so Buddha is really focused on, this is the issue at hand. This is the issue at hand. So Buddha was silent on that issue of God or no God. So he didn't negate God. But I do think that removing the God part is precisely, in fact, what makes people say that Buddhism is a philosophy. But like I said, if you again go to, I mean, even if you pick up any Buddhist text and read it, anything, you know, oh, blessed one, the most beloved Buddha, we worship you and fall at your feet. All of this is there. So there is a certain kind of God-like worship of Buddha happening. But as my teacher, you always used to tell me, it's not that we're really worshiping or want to worship Buddha, but the Buddhist teachings. What does the Buddha embody in terms of those teachings? So really, what you're really paying homage to is the teachings of Buddhism. And if you really believe in the teachings of Buddhism, then you're not worried about God or no God. You're just worrying about removing the pain of your own life and trying to alleviate the pain of others.